He was a ghost, a whisper, a name spoken in hushed tones. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, the world's most notorious drug lord. His empire stretched across continents, built on a foundation of cocaine, heroin, and bloodshed. From the mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico to the streets of New York City, his influence was inescapable. He was a phantom, always one step ahead of the law, a master of evasion and violence. This is the story of El Chapo's rise and fall, a journey into the heart of the drug trade, a world of unimaginable wealth and unspeakable brutality. This is a story about power, corruption, and the never-ending war on drugs. Born in the rural mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico, Joaquín Guzmán's childhood was one of poverty and hardship. Opportunities were scarce and the allure of the drug trade was ever present. He began his life in the drug trade young, working as a lookout and runner for local traffickers. His intelligence and ruthlessness quickly became apparent. He rose through the ranks, proving himself to be a shrewd operator and a ruthless enforcer. He joined the ranks of the growing Sinaloa Cartel, a powerful and dangerous organization. His ambition knew no bounds and he wouldn't rest until he controlled it all. The Sinaloa Cartel, a sprawling criminal enterprise, became El Chapo's training ground. He learned the intricacies of drug trafficking, cultivating contacts, and eliminating rivals. His rise was swift and brutal, marked by violence and betrayal. He orchestrated shipments of cocaine and heroin into the United States on an unprecedented scale. His influence within the cartel grew, and his ambition put him at odds with his superiors. A power struggle erupted, leaving a trail of bodies in its wake. El Chapo emerged victorious, seizing control of the Sinaloa Cartel and cementing his position as a major player in the global drug trade. El Chapo's reign as head of the Sinaloa Cartel ushered in an era of unprecedented violence and profit. He became known as El Chapo, Shorty, for his diminutive stature, but his reputation preceded him. He was a ghost, moving silently through a world of corruption and violence. His empire extended across continents, fueled by a seemingly endless demand for drugs. He built a sophisticated network of tunnels, safe houses, and corrupt officials, ensuring his product reached its destination. His ruthlessness knew no bounds, eliminating anyone who stood in his way. Governments around the world sought to bring him down, but El Chapo always seemed to be one step ahead. Living in the shadows, I became a master of evasion, always one step ahead of the law. He used his vast wealth and power to corrupt officials, buy loyalty, and ensure his freedom. His life was a constant game of cat and mouse, moving from one safe house to another, always looking over his shoulder. He surrounded himself with a loyal inner circle, men who would die for him without hesitation. He became a folk hero to some, a symbol of resistance against the government and the wealthy. But for law enforcement, he was public enemy number one, a constant reminder of the power of the cartels. The hunt for him became an obsession, consuming the resources of multiple governments. His ability to evade capture became legendary. He disappeared into thin air, vanishing from heavily guarded locations. His escapes were the stuff of Hollywood movies, daring and brazen. He utilized a network of sophisticated tunnels, some stretching for miles, to move drugs and escape capture. El Chapo exploited every weakness, bribing officials and exploiting loopholes in the system. His escapes became bolder, a testament to his power and the reach of his influence. He escaped from a maximum security prison in Mexico in 2001, reportedly hiding in a laundry cart. In 2015 he escaped again, this time through a mile-long tunnel dug into his shower stall. His escapes became a symbol of his power, a slap in the face of law enforcement. Despite his best efforts, the net began to close in on El Chapo. Years of relentless pursuit by law enforcement agencies around the world began to pay off. Intelligence gathering improved and the authorities were able to infiltrate his inner circle. His luck was running out. In 2016, Mexican Marines captured El Chapo after a fierce gun battle in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. He was extradited to the United States to face a multitude of charges, including drug trafficking, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. His capture marked the end of an era, but the war on drugs was far from over. The trial of the century. El Chapo's trial in New York City was a global media sensation. The world watched as prosecutors laid out the full extent of his crimes. Witnesses, including former associates and rivals, testified about his brutality and ruthlessness. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, including intercepted communications, financial records, and eyewitness accounts. El Chapo is a scapegoat, a small fish in a much larger pond. The jury ultimately found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ending his reign of terror once and for all. His conviction was a major victory for law enforcement, but it did little to stem the flow of drugs into the United States. Life behind bars. El Chapo's final chapter. El Chapo is currently serving his life sentence at ADX Florence, a supermax prison in Colorado known for its harsh conditions. This facility is often referred to as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, due to its extreme security measures and the notorious criminals it houses. He spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement with limited human contact. The isolation is designed to break the spirits of even the most hardened criminals, and El Chapo is no exception. His days of luxury and power are long gone, replaced by the stark reality of prison life. The opulent mansions, the fleets of luxury cars, and the endless wealth are now distant memories, replaced by the stark reality of prison life. The once feared drug lord now faces the monotony and harshness of his new existence. He is a shadow of his former self, his empire in ruins. The vast network he once controlled has been dismantled, and his loyal followers have either been captured or gone into hiding. His story is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the rise and fall of one of the most powerful drug lords in history, a reminder of the seductive power of greed and the lengths to which people will go to amass wealth and power, and the devastating consequences of a life of crime. The violence, the betrayals, and the ultimate downfall serve as a grim warning, but his legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the drug war. The impact of his actions is still felt today as law enforcement agencies continue to battle the cartels. His capture did not end the drug trade, it merely created a void that was quickly filled by others eager to take his place. The cycle of violence and corruption continues as new leaders emerge to claim the throne. It merely created a void that was quickly filled by others eager to take his place. The struggle for power and control in the drug world is relentless, and the fight against it is far from over. Section 10. The Legacy of El Chapo. El Chapo's legacy is a complex one, filled with contradictions and controversies. He was a ruthless criminal who brought misery to countless lives, leaving behind a trail of destruction and heartbreak. But he was also a product of his environment, shaped by the harsh realities of poverty and limited opportunities. Rising from the depths of poverty, he became one of the most powerful and feared criminals in the world, a symbol of both ambition and terror. His story is a stark reminder of the failures of the war on drugs, a policy that has been criticized for its ineffectiveness and high human cost. This war has cost trillions of dollars and countless lives, yet the demand for drugs remains insatiable, perpetuating a vicious cycle. The demand for drugs continues to fuel the cycle of violence and corruption, affecting communities worldwide and undermining the rule of law. El Chapo's capture did not end the drug trade, it merely removed one player from a game that continues to this day, with new leaders emerging to take his place. The drug trade is a complex and deeply entrenched issue that requires more than just arrests and crackdowns. The fight against drug trafficking requires a multifaceted approach, involving not just law enforcement, but also social, economic, and educational strategies. Addressing the root causes of demand, such as addiction and lack of economic opportunities, is crucial. Offering viable alternatives to those caught in the crossfire, such as rehabilitation and education, can help break the cycle. Until then, the cycle of violence and corruption will continue, leaving more victims in its wake and challenging societies to find better solutions. Section 11. The War on Drugs, a never-ending story. El Chapo's reign may be over, but the war on drugs rages on. Despite his capture, the drug trade has not slowed down. New leaders emerge and the cycle of violence continues. Governments around the world continue to pour billions of dollars into law enforcement and interdiction efforts. These measures include increased border security, international cooperation, and advanced surveillance technologies. But the demand for drugs remains high, fueling the cycle of violence and corruption. The lucrative nature of the drug trade ensures that cartels will always find willing participants. Some argue that the war on drugs has been a failure, creating more problems than it has solved. They point to the overcrowded prisons, the destruction of communities, and the erosion of trust between law enforcement and the public. They advocate for alternative approaches such as decriminalization and legalization, as a way to reduce harm and undermine the power of the cartels. These advocates believe that treating drug addiction as a public health issue rather than a criminal one could lead to better outcomes. The debate over drug policy is complex and emotionally charged. It involves a myriad of stakeholders, including policymakers, law enforcement, healthcare professionals, and affected communities. There are no easy answers, but one thing is certain. The war on drugs, as it is currently being fought, is not working. The need for a new approach is evident, one that addresses the root causes of drug addiction and seeks to heal rather than punish.